Good evening. My name is Alan Seaman, and I'm the mayor of the city of Rancho Mirage, and I'm here to greet you tonight and thank you for coming. This is a very, very important meeting, and I was thinking before I came here about why would we have such a meeting? It's like deciding to dig a well when you're thirsty. It becomes too late to get to that water when you really need it. And so I wondered, not so much to you as the audience, because you're obviously interested in what's happening, but I wondered if anybody in this Coachella Valley, is there anybody living here who doesn't believe that we're going to have an earthquake one day? I mean, if they do, they're living in a different world. And while we can't predict the time of this event, we certainly know it's going to happen, and we certainly have the ability and the responsibility of preparing for it. I know in my house, which is a little house in Rancho Mirage, we are so prepared for an earthquake. My wife says she'll be very disappointed if it doesn't happen, because we've spent so much money at the Home Depot with our bedrolls and our dog food on both sides of the building, and all this equipment that we hope works. We have shovels and tents and bedrolls, so that the only problem I could think about was all these neighbors who haven't spoken to me in years will be over to enjoy my generator when the time comes, and that's when I'll remind them of this meeting and your interest in it. I have the honor today to introduce some of the celebrities in the audience. The first one is Dr. David Fleming, who is the chairman of our Health and Medical Welfare Commission. Oh, she's the chairman. You're the assistant chairman. And we have a very good chairman, who is Jeannie Parrish, who was the former mayor of the city of Rancho Mirage, and I had the pleasure to serve with her on that council. No, you got to stand up if I introduce you. And then my favorite of all time, except for my wife, Shauna Perry, who is on our planning commissioner and is the head of our planning commissioner. She is the best planning commissioner that this city has ever had. Shauna Perry. Well, there she is in the back with the white sweater on. I mean, she could write a book on planning for the city of Rancho Mirage. I am so in awe of her. When I first met her, I thought she was an employee because she knew so much. I couldn't imagine that anybody would know that much and come here to work for nothing. So she's a terrific girl and my heroine. Next person is Travis. And I don't know the last name. Help me with the name of it. Whitten. Travis Whitten, who is our battalion chief, and he is where? There he is, the handsome young man in the back with the beautiful uniform on. And our three members of the Cove Battalion Firefighters Association, which is Captain Huntley. Captain Huntley is probably outside watching the truck so nobody steals it from us. And Captain John Harvey and Captain Warren Mueller. Mueller has got those umlauts on it. So here we are, all in good health and ready to go. And we have this great opportunity before us to prepare for this event that we hope that never takes place. But I always say to people that we don't want to be the biggest city in the Coachella Valley, but we want to be the best city in the Coachella Valley. So this gives us the opportunity to talk to each other and listen to the experts. And I'm honored to be a listener here today. And I would like to introduce now is Richard Kite, who is going to take over for me in another 10 days or so as the mayor of the city. Richard is the best, I said that about Shauna, but Richard is the best councilman we have ever had in the city of Rancho Mirage. Richard Kite. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan, and welcome to all of you to the 4th Annual Emergency Preparedness Forum. Protecting the lives of our residents against future emergencies is one of the most important responsibilities we have as a city. Since Hurricane Katrina shook the foundations of state and federal governments, our city and others around the country have begun to put in place their own programs that will meet the needs of our residents in the first few critical days after disaster strikes. In the March 8th issue of the Desert Sun, their editorial noted that the need for cities to prepare for future disasters. They said cities, HOAs, neighborhoods should all develop ways to ensure that people who need medical attention, water, food, clothing, and other shelter can receive it. Further, they said that what makes Rancho Mirage's plan forward-thinking is that it's a city-wide plan that will marshal life-saving resources in advance of a disaster. Tonight, you'll hear firsthand from those who will be coordinating the disaster plan. They will bring together city, county, and volunteer organizations to ensure that we'll all be better prepared for that eventual disaster. In addition to discussing how we can all meet our preparedness goals, tonight we'll also discuss home fire safety, emergency medical services, and Eisenhower Medical Center's role in emergency care. Now I'd like to take a few minutes just to introduce the panel for tonight. On my right is Richard A. Sines, Emergency Manager for the City of Rancho Mirage. On his right is Richard Perry, Chairman, Community Emergency Preparedness Commission for the City of Rancho Mirage. On my far left is Gail Whetstone, Registered Nurse, BSN for Eisenhower Medical Center. Next to Gail is Battalion Chief Walt Holloway from the Cove Battalion Chief organization for Riverside County. And next to me is Battalion Chief David Avila, Fire Marshal for the Cove communities. After the presentation, we'll open up the meetings for questions from all of you. I'd like to remind you also you received a handout tonight that has 3 brochures in it, one talking about disaster preparedness and one talking about the Emergency Preparedness Commission, and another book talking about disaster relief in general. So if you're taking notes tonight, great. If you're not, all the information is in these 3 brochures. So now I'd like to begin the Emergency Preparedness Forum with Dick Perry. Dick?
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I'm really happy to see such a good turnout tonight. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge, and he's not even running for office right now, I'd like to acknowledge Councilman Kite for the work that he's done with this commission. He's kind of taken us under his wing, lend us a lot of support in what we do, and he brings a great deal of importance to us. These forums that this is our 4th, have been his idea, and he's the one that's carried it forward for us, and we all want to extend our appreciation for that. I'd like to start by introducing the members of the commission, if I may, in the order of their tenure on the commission, and I'd ask each of them to briefly stand up and wave so you know who they are. You may want to get a hold of these folks in one of these days. First, I'd like to introduce Diane Fox. Diane has been with the commission since June of 1999. She has an extensive background in community affairs. She's been an active volunteer with the American National Red Cross and a staunch supporter and contributor to the commission. Next to me is Donald Buck Galbraith. Buck has been with the commission since June of '99. He had 23 years in the military, very successful career in the military, and then 25 years in the aerospace industry following that, in case that wasn't enough. And he brings a wealth of experience and has one of the best emergency organizations in his community of any place in the Coachella Valley. Richard Davis, Richard has been with the commission since June of 2001. And Richard is a very successful businessman here in Rancho Mirage and brings a lot of enthusiasm and experience to the commission. Myself, I've been with the commission since June of 2002. I had 32 years in the fire service, a lot of it in emergency management and emergency preparedness. D. Clayton Mays, who isn't with us tonight, is another commissioner that joined us in June of 2004. An extensive background in law enforcement, as well as being the head of the Administration of Justice and Fire Technology program at College of the Desert. And also, last but certainly not least, the baby on the commission, Ron Elena. Ron joined the commission in May of 2005 after a very long and successful career in law enforcement as well. So we try to bring our expertise to you and hope that we can in some way pay back a little of what we've gotten. I'd like to talk just a few minutes about the goals of the commission, and I think these are important. Much of the material that we're going to cover tonight, as Councilman Kite said, are in the brochures that you received tonight. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on detail, but we want to make sure that you know that that information is there for you. There's a couple of brochures that we think are some of the best that have ever been published on disaster preparedness, and we think that's a good start for you. Number one, the Commission's goal is to ensure that the city's quick response in the first hours following a disaster. Katrina showed us that while the wheels of government eventually get turning, large organizations, bureaucratic organizations such as state and even local governments sometimes take a long time to get going. But we know that people are going to need help in the very first hours of an emergency. And this city is small enough that we hope that we can be responsive enough and nimble enough in our approach that we can get a lot of things done right off the bat. We're looking at shelter agreements and trying to build shelter teams to help us house anybody that unfortunately may be displaced from their residence and take care of a lot of the things that Dick Sines is going to talk about in his presentation. Probably our primary goal is the education of our citizens. We think that the importance of self-reliance cannot be overstressed. I can tell you for a fact, after 32 years in the fire service, from one of the largest fire departments in the state, it is never enough resources. If you have a major emergency and a major disaster on your hands, we are going to have to fend for ourselves for a period of time. We can't be everywhere at the same time. And that's what we're trying to stress with all of our citizens. Build some self-reliance, plan in advance for what you're doing, and then carry out that plan. We conduct forums. First of all, we encourage individual and community emergency planning. We are available as commissioners to meet with any community or homeowners association, help you develop an emergency plan for your group, help you design exercises for it, and you are welcome to attend our monthly commission meetings at any time. They're open to the public. Also, we conduct forums and workshops such as this one. One of the things that we're looking at in the near future is to conduct a workshop for homeowners associations specifically on the wherewithal and the means to conduct or to develop an emergency plan. Not necessarily for the general public, but for the working members of those committees that will actually be putting together that plan. We like to think that the Commission works in close cooperation with the Health and Medical Welfare Commission. They are in the process of trying to make sure that our community has the ability to offer the finest in medical help that we can at the time of a disaster. And they are actively recruiting physicians, nurses, and anybody in the community that is willing to volunteer in times of emergency. We recommend also new programs to the City Council to increase our readiness, the readiness of the cities, and we're open to any and all ideas to help accomplish that. Richard?
Thank you, Dick. I'd just like to let you all know that we've had two members of the City Council join us for this meeting. They're in the back of the room, Dana Hobart and Ron Mepos. Dana and Ron, would you stand up? To begin our presentation tonight, we're going to talk about three areas of earthquake preparedness, and the first one will be discussed by Ron Elena, who will talk about preparation for the eventual earthquake. Ron?
A public speaker, I am not. I have tried and I've had several meltdowns. I work better one-on-one, pressing the flesh, and I give good listen. and I try and solve problems. The biggest thing I've learned since my short time on the commission is you have a city council, a mayor, and a mayor pro tem that care, and they care a great deal. That caring comes down through the commission, and hopefully we're going to pass it on to you. I'm looking forward to working with you in small meetings, large meetings, whatever it takes. The biggest thing we're trying to do is keep you alive from 3 to 7 days until we can get some help to you. And I don't know what else to say at this stage, but thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Ron. Our next presenter will be Buck Galbraith, who will talk a little bit how to respond to the earthquake after it happens. Buck?
Thank you very much, Councilman. The primary purpose of the response comments is to alert you to the events that can occur during a severe earthquake, how the results can affect you and your family, and most importantly, perhaps help you to become better prepared for the catastrophe that you must anticipate. Several years ago, when a major earthquake was predicted for our area, the County of Riverside ordered a study to determine the effects of a 7.4 earthquake on the Coachella Valley. The area graph shows the area where the most critical effects will occur, and essentially the deep shaded red indicates very violent shaking, which, as you can see, is the entire valley, from Beaumont all the way down beyond the sea. The violent shaking will result in damage to 79,678 buildings. Casualties, and this was taken during work hours when the most of the people were exposed, 281 killed or mortally injured, and 4,186 injured. The economic loss to the entire valley is estimated to be $3.6 billion. Now, this will give you some idea of what you may expect after a severe earthquake here in the Coachella Valley, and should that earthquake occur tonight or tomorrow. One welcome finding that the study revealed: many of our homes are built to the latest building codes and will survive a 7.4 earthquake. What we must be concerned with as far as damage goes is the interior of the home. Walls failing, furniture falling, glass shattering, and so forth, and the resulting injuries that can occur to the occupants. We're told by the experts that a 7.4 earthquake can last at least 45 seconds and possibly more than a minute. Let's see what can happen in those 45 seconds. You try to stand, but you can't. So you try to find the safest place to sit or to lay down. You hear glass shattering. That's your patio doors going. Books fly out of bookcases, and bookcases fall if they're not secured. Bar glasses are jarred to the floor and they break. Knickknacks fall. Kitchen cabinets spill out. Ceiling fixtures fall. And if you're in bed, you hope that that heavy framed picture you have hanging over the bed stays on the wall. Now, all of this occurs in 45 seconds to 1 minute. Remember, this is the first 45 seconds of a catastrophic emergency. After the shaking subsides, the following results are realized. Electricity is lost. We've got no radio, no TV, no air conditioning. The phone is dead. The cell phone comes in and goes out. If you can stand or move about, stay inside the house because it's better inside than outside. And if you're outside, stay outside and move to a cleared area. And most important, be alert to aftershocks. Shaking can be as severe as the generating earthquake. Hopefully you have some heavy shoes to wear because there's going to be glass everywhere in your house. Now, once you're reasonably certain, then you can move about the home safely. Turn on your battery-operated radio, the emergency radio station, our FM at KDES 104, and AM KNWZ 1270. Immediately check your household occupants for any injury. Locate your pet. Calm him, get him safe. Get he or she safe, pardon me. Check for odor of gas, inside and outside, and if you smell any gas whatsoever, turn the gas off. Check your neighbors. No one should be left alone at this particular time. And finally, post your door hanger. Now, the door hangers you see here are the product of Mission Hills East Homeowner Association. And we would be happy to provide you with, we do provide you with samples of the people I talk to, and advise we can advise your committee and your management people of where you can order them for your particular homeowner association or your homes. The city is considering providing them to all homeowners. Before and after the response actions have occurred, some very primary things. Keep your vehicle filled with gas at all times. Keep an extra tank of LPG so that if you have to cook, you can cook outside on your stove out there. Share your food with neighbors. Year-round people have a full refrigerator. Part-time, they may only have a good bottle of wine. And volunteer to assist your homeowner emergency preparedness committee because they're going to need help and assistance. Right now, most of us are attuned to the devastation of Katrina. But remember, our concerns are not the same as for those we have for an earthquake. Earthquakes cannot be predicted. We will not have days or hours to prepare, to buy water, to buy food, to buy batteries or plywood for our windows and so forth. No, what we have to do is start worrying about our buildings collapsing, and which may be more immediate than things falling, no flooding. We don't have to worry about that. We won't have the choice of evacuation, so we're stuck where we are. We will have 45 seconds to a minute to ponder not what we should have done, but what we haven't done. And the best way to survive a catastrophic earthquake is to be prepared. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Buck. Our next presenter will be Dick Perry, who will talk about the third phase of earthquake preparedness, and that's the recovery phase.
Thank you very much, Richard. First thing I'd like to do, if I can, and Josh, I'm going to take things a little out of order here, if it's all right with you. First thing I'd like to do is talk a little bit about planning. It's one of the things that we as a commission really stress. It doesn't take a lot of effort, and it depends. Well, let me back up for a second and say that we stress two kinds of plannings. Planning for your individual family, and that doesn't take a lot of effort to do that. We also stress that if you are a member of a homeowners association, gated community that has an organization, that community does a fair amount of planning because there's great safety in numbers and the ability to help one another. Planning is a very simple thing. You just organize your community or your family into manageable blocks of control and spans of control. If you have 10 streets in your community and you have 100 residences on those 10 streets, it's very hard to get one person to go and check on 100 residences. But it's very easy to get 10 people to go and check on 10 residences at one time. That's the whole idea of community planning. Then maybe putting aside some supplies as a community, extra water, having a place for everybody to gather in the event that there is a problem with individual homes, having a place to gather, and even to provide some temporary shelter. As a homeowner, we ask you to do some very simple things. Develop a very simple, and believe me when I tell you this, we have brochures for you. We have got brochures for you. This particular one that's in your packet is called Putting Down Roots in Earthquake Country. It's perhaps the best publication I've ever seen on earthquake and disaster preparedness. It covers everything that we're going to talk about tonight in much, much greater detail. But let me tell you that what you want to do is devise a plan of action so you don't have to think about it very carefully when the time comes. You take your plan out, you go down the checklist of what's in your plan, the things that you need to do. You make sure that you put aside a cache of supplies, as Buck has mentioned. Well, even if you go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, they have people there that will help you do it, that are actually skilled in putting together disaster kits because they know what those items are. But it's very simple. Food and water for a period of 3 to 7 days, a gallon a day for every member of your family, and don't forget your pets. Non-perishable items of food that you can eat, that you can cook. As Buck said, make sure that you have some way to cook your food, or at least some way to prepare it. Have a manual can opener. You're probably not going to have electricity. Lots of little things like that. A portable radio, flashlight with some batteries, and you're set to go. We're not going to be, I don't think, like most organizations or a lot of areas of the country where we have days and days and days where we're not going to get a lot of help. California, unfortunately, is pretty used to disasters. We have a lot of wildfires. We've had more than our share of earthquakes, and we think that we're going to be able to respond in a much more timely manner. But we're going to be kidding. We'd be kidding you if we told you not to be prepared for 72 hours or maybe longer to be on your own. And remember your neighbors and those that are not as able to help themselves as you are. If we all work together, we'll get through this. Josh, if we can go to the recovery phase, please. I'd like to talk a little bit about your emergency preparedness plan disaster recovery phase. Again, follow your plan. If you have it written down ahead of time, it's going to be easy to do things that you need to do. Don't rely on your memory. Even those of us that were used to emergency situations on a day in, day out basis get flustered when you get in the heat of the moment. It's important to follow your plan. Take care of your own situation first, just like they tell you on an airplane. The important thing is if you take care of yourself and your family, then you're going to be able to help those around you a little bit. After the shaking stops, check for injuries and damage that need immediate attention. Call 911 if it's truly urgent. Now, we're not talking about every day. We're talking about during a disaster. If you can't perform minor first aid and, of course, CPR, then call 911 for sure. But if you can put a Band-Aid on somebody's cut, if you can immobilize a fracture or something like that, emergency services are going to need their communications lines as much as possible. And remember, resources are going to be severely limited. Give first aid and CPR if needed. Extinguish minor fires if that's a possibility. Detect and shut off gas leaks. Look for damaged electrical wiring, down utility lines, and clean up any spills that may have occurred of flammable liquids or hazardous chemicals. A lot of the things that we keep in our homes can be hazardous when they mix. If your home is badly damaged and you must leave, take your supplies with you. Tell your neighbor where you've gone so that nobody is checking on you and spending a lot of time trying to find you. And we recommend sheltering in place. If your home is livable after an earthquake and you can shelter in your own home, we certainly recommend that above everything. Emergency managers everywhere take that approach. If that's the case, make your home as safe as possible. Clean up glass and debris, weatherproof your home if it's during bad weather. Anticipate aftershocks. They always occur. And consider all aspects of family security. If there's not going to be a lot of law enforcement presence around, find a way to secure your property, your valuables, and your family. Until you are sure that there are no gas leaks absolutely do not use matches, lighters, candles, kitchen or camp stoves, barbecues, electrical equipment, and of course, never use camp stoves, hibachis, or barbecues indoors because of the carbon monoxide hazard. Be in communications. Turn on your portable or car radio for information and safety advisories. Place all phones back in their cradles because anybody that tries to call you is going to get a busy signal. Call your out-of-area contact, and that means that everybody should have somebody out of the state that they can call and let them know that you're okay. Make that call and then stay off the phone. Put out your door hanger or your help or okay sign that Buck was talking about, and then above all, check on your neighbors, those people that may not be able to fend for themselves. Check your food and water supplies. You can use up refrigerated and frozen foods first. Even if you lose power, they'll stay frozen for a period of time. You can drink from water heaters, melted ice cubes, and canned vegetables if necessary. Do not eat or drink anything from open containers near shattered glass. Plan on making your supplies last from 3 to 7 days. If there's any doubt about your ability to do that, buy more. What's next? Your recovery period can last from several weeks to months or even longer, depending on your damage. Contact your insurance company right away to begin the claims process. For most disasters, resources will also be available from FEMA, local and state emergency response agencies. If your primary residence is not livable, you may be eligible for funds for temporary housing and other related expenses, but don't look for any of that in the first 24 hours. Non-governmental relief organizations such as the Red Cross, Salvation Army, local church groups are often the first ones to respond to us in a time of need. And we can pretty much count on them. Getting back to normal. This is very important. The aftermath of a disaster will be very stressful. Family members will be frightened, particularly children and our senior members. Their routines will be disrupted severely. Whenever possible, comfort those people. Let them know that things are all right. Take charge. Get your routine, get them involved in the recovery process, and get your routine back to normal as quickly as possible. It's important that we regain control of our lives and get back to normal as soon as we can. Remember, above all, your successful recovery is going to depend on the extent of your good planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Dick. We're going to change direction a little bit now and go away from earthquake preparedness to home fire safety, and we now have the Fire Marshal, David Avila, who will speak a few minutes on safety around the home.
Thank you, Mr. Kite. Good evening. I'm David Avila. I'm the Coves Battalion Fire Marshal. In addition to Rancho Mirage, I also serve Palm Desert and Indian Wells, and it certainly is a pleasure to be here to talk to you about home fire safety. If you can go ahead and start it up. Well, just so you know that there are about 40,000 Americans who die each year from fires, and 4,000 Americans who die in fires, and about 25,000 are injured. In California in 2001, which is the most accurate statistics, we've had 29,420 residential fires, and out of those, we had 38 deaths and approximately 308 injuries, including 33 firefighters. So what we're trying to do here at this point is to bring awareness to home fire safety for everyday disasters that we may find, not just the big earthquakes or the floods, but the everyday disasters in our lives. And some of the easiest things that you can do is simply have a smoke alarm, smoke detectors. That is the easiest and cheapest form of life insurance that you can have. A smoke detector doubles your chance of survival in any type of a fire situation. Some of the things that you need to do with these smoke detectors is to make sure that you keep them clean, check them monthly, make sure that they work, change out your batteries at least twice a year, And the fire department recommends that you change them when you change your clocks. As you know, this weekend, this Sunday, we're changing up into daylight saving times. So this is a good time to vacuum out your smoke detector or use a feather duster and then change out your battery. And then we'll do it again back in fall. Again, this is just cheap life insurance. And remember that all smoke detectors, like everything else, has a shelf life. Follow the manufacturer directions on when to change your smoke detector out. Typically it's 10 years, but some of the more high-end ones may go a little bit longer. Next thing we want to talk about is preventing electrical fires. Electrical fires is the most common cause of residential and manufactured home fires. And some of the issues that as you see on the screen here are the typical causes of fires in residences. One of the things that you don't want to do is overload your circuits. Now, we all have those multi-strip circuits in our homes that we plug our TV into, and VCR, CDs, our radios, and then in turn we plug it into the wall. Well, the wall socket is only designed to handle really 2 outlets. That's all they're good for. But if you start loading it up, you overheat the system, and then eventually over time you're going to cause a fire either within the wall socket itself or another weak point going back to your main electrical panel. If you're going to use these multi-strip circuits, use one that has a circuit breaker that trips off. The low-cost ones that you get from Ace or Home Depot for $5 are not really very good for that type of thing. What you want to do is get, quite frankly, the more expensive ones, and they have a little trip at the end. Looks like a little button, and it'll trip off, and it's a little bit more durable, a little bit more reliable. And again, change them out every 5 or 10 years because they do have a shelf life, and they eventually also will go bad. Use only lab-approved, such as UL or FM-approved appliances and equipment. Now, some of the things that we do, and I'm guilty of this, especially during the holiday season, is to string about 6 or 7 of these Christmas lights so my house all lights up all nice and pretty at the same time. Check those lightings and see, make sure that they're UL listed. You would be surprised how many of those Christmas decorations are not UL listed, and they have been known to cause fires. Don't leave them on and up and running all year round. That's a guaranteed fire. They're only good for 90 days as per the manufacturer instructions. Anything beyond that, you're taking your home and your life in your own risk. Now, we talk about alternate heating sources. Use them properly, and by those I'm talking about those space heaters, the element types that heat up a coil and that warms up your room or the house, and also fireplaces. Those appliances, while handy, as they, it's an active, not a flame, but an active heat source. You want to make sure that you keep at least a 3-foot clearance around these types of space heaters. Turn them off when you're sleeping or away from the house. Now, back in the days, maybe 5 years ago when I was a fire investigator, we had an incident out here in the Cove communities, not in Rancho Mirage, fortunately, where a person left a space heater on at the foot of her bed. Well, she had one of those nice satiny bed covers. It slipped. It slipped down to the foot of the bed, got within a couple of feet of the space heater, caused the fire. And unfortunately, she died. There's nothing we could have done at this point. But a simple thing such as turning them off, use extra blankets, it's worth your life. Fireplaces, make sure that you put a fire screen there. Don't have any type of fireplace without a fire screen. Also, whenever you have these appliances like coffee makers, toaster ovens, use them properly. Toaster ovens are not designed to cook turkeys or to be used for long periods of time. They're just supposed to, toast your bagel and do a couple of little minor things. If you use them for long periods of time, they also can overheat and cause a fire. And these types of appliances, these light appliances, they do go bad. And we've all had histories and we all heard stories about how coffee makers have shorted out and started fires. They still do that today, despite the safety precautions that they use. We still get a significant number of those. So whenever you're done using them, unplug it. Don't leave anything like that plugged. All right, I want to touch a little bit about manufactured homes. We have a significant manufactured home community in Rancho Mirage that we're all very proud of. But again, just like in our regular single-family dwellings, manufactured electrical fires are the single #1 causes of fires. And in here especially, we want to make sure that because due to lightweight construction, we want to take extra precautions. Never overload your circuits again. If the breaker trips in a manufactured home or in a regular home, call an electrician to find out. Don't just put in another circuit breaker, from a 15 to a 20 amp. All you're going to do is just prolong the problem, and you are going to get a fire. Have your heating systems checked at least once a year. That goes with regular family dwellings, structured dwellings also. Your heating systems, and by the way, your air conditioning. And as Chief Holloway and Chief Whitten can attest, we go to several fires during the summertime because the air conditioning fan belts or something freezes in the system. Have those checked annually. We use those types of appliances a lot during the summertime and a lot of our heating during the wintertime. Make sure that they're well maintained. And in our manufactured homes, make sure you have skirting around the base of your coach or manufactured home. Don't store anything underneath there that such as combustibles, clothes, debris, anything. All that does is those are just other sources for fire to go and to spread underneath. You go to the next one, please. Okay, now this is important, and what we want to provide for, and I think we've talked about this already, we need to practice exiting from our house in the event of emergency, not just for big disasters, but for everyday fires that we may have. And we call this EDITH, that is to say, exit drills in the home. Everybody should be able to have a plan from whatever room they're in to exit through a certain path and meet in a certain location pre-designated by the family. Practice this. Get everybody used to it. If you're in the living room, you go out this way. If you're in your bedroom, you go out this way. And once you've accounted yourself at your meeting place, call for help. Now, if you can use a hard line, that is to say a neighbor's telephone, that would be the best way to call 911. To give you a little bit of a background here, using your cell phone, you can call 911, but it'll go to the California Highway Patrol office nearest your location. They in turn take the information and transfer it to the fire department. It delays service, and sometimes a priority isn't established as you would like it to be. If you call 911 for an emergency and the Highway Patrol is working something that they consider an emergency, there may actually be a delay in service. California right now is looking into ways of trying to resolve that situation where our 911s from cell phones are going to go to the local government agency that handles it normally. But in the meantime, we're still going through CHP. They're wonderful service, but sometimes it can stall our response. Okay, next one, please. Portable heaters. We touched on this already. We want to make sure we keep them at least 3 feet away from anything that can burn. Never leave your heaters when you go outside and go to bed. Use only in well-ventilated areas. If you smell something unusual while the heater is going on, maybe some overheating, some circuitry, we know what ozone smells like. If you see sparks or hear any unusual noises, disconnect it immediately. And either call an electrician if you think it's worth salvaging, or just toss it and replace it. Keep children and pets away from these things, obviously. Kids like to play. They can burn themselves. They can knock it over, and then we can start a fire. Fire extinguishers. Everyone should have at least one. I have 2. Unfortunately, I've had some experience in my life where I've had to use it a couple times at home. Keep one in the kitchen especially, and I would recommend you keep one in the garage. The kitchen, we have kitchen fires all the time, not all the time, but we have kitchen fires. We have open flame there. We can burn grease, we can burn food. You can buy the small ones. They cost only $10, $15, little disposable ones, about the size of a 8 or a 1-cup thermos that we have back in the days when we were kids going to school, or you can buy some nice expensive ones that cost $50, $60 that can handle anything in the house. Keep one in the garage. We've got automobiles, we have paints, solvents, rags, a lot of things in there can catch fire, which, by the way, the 33 fire injuries were all attributed to garage fires in 2001. So it tells you, there is a lot of danger in there. If you have an opportunity to use a fire extinguisher, use it. I don't recommend everybody try to be John Wayne. So consider yourself and your family first before you go out there and try to put out a fire. But if you think you can do that, I recommend you give it a shot. Also, I recommend you learn how to use the fire extinguisher before you have to use it. I can't see you. And if I need to use the fire extinguisher now, I'm not going to be able to know how to use it unless I know ahead of time. So when I'm in bed, I can get up and I can, pull the pin, aim it, sweep it, smother the fire, as the acronym PASS suggests. I already know how to do that. Take a few moments, learn how to use it, and be prepared. And finally, I want to touch on carbon monoxide detectors. Now, while this isn't so much of a home fire safety issue, it is a life safety issue. And we get a lot of phone calls in the fire marshal's office about these. Carbon monoxide, as you know, is odorless, colorless, tasteless. You have no idea where it's at. It comes from gas-fired appliances, stoves, heaters, motor vehicles. You can buy carbon monoxide detectors in conjunction with smoke alarms, so you have a dual-purpose kind of thing. If you hear the smoke alarm, if you hear the carbon monoxide detector go off, the first thing you want to do, if it's practical, is to turn off all your gas appliances, thus eliminating the source of carbon monoxide. You want to open up your windows and then call for help. If you have any symptoms, flu-like symptoms, such as headaches, nausea, fatigue, then you have a carbon monoxide exposure. At that point, don't waste any time, get everybody out of the house. It recommends you silence the alarm, but what's more important, getting everybody out of the house or turning off the alarm first? I would just get everybody out. Anyway, in closing, if you have any questions later on, I'll be glad to answer them. Be fire safe. Again, apply this to your everyday life as well as any disasters that may come along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. It's really important for all of us to remember these facts and to write down the most important ones so you can keep them around the house and you can have a plan for around the house when you have a fire. Our next speaker will be on paramedic and EMS services, and that's Battalion Chief Walt Holloway. Chief?
Good evening. As Chief Avila mentioned, I wanted to thank the Commission and all the City Council and Rancho Mirage, as well as, first place, City Council and Rancho Mirage for giving us this opportunity to speak with you folks. And I wanted to thank you folks for coming by because we don't get these kinds of opportunities very often. So it's it's a very good thing that we have that at this time. I'm going to be talking about EMS. Obviously, we provide fire services as well, but my focus today is on EMS, Emergency Medical Services. As you can tell, fire service likes our acronyms. I am a paramedic. I've been a paramedic for about 16 years. I happen to be the EMS guy here in 3 cities. I've been here for about 3 years, and I can tell you that you folks, as well as with Palm Desert and Indian Wells, share some of the best EMS delivery service in Riverside County. I've worked in other areas of the county. I've worked private ambulance and so forth and so on, and you folks have some of the best EMS service available. And not so much specifically because of our fire department, but because of the system that we have in place here in the community. And that's what I'm going to kind of go over a little bit. But I wanted to start off with first that hopefully you never have to call us, obviously, because that means you or someone that you love or someone that you know is hurting. And if you do have to call us, generally speaking, our role in EMS falls into one of 4 categories: medical care, trauma care, pediatric care, and neonatal care. we're proficient in all of these in providing emergency services, and if we're not at that moment, then we just get to the hospital and take care of you and stabilize you and so forth and get you to the hospital. Neonates is one of the worst ones to go out on, of course, because newborn babies are very difficult to manage. But all the other things, again, you can feel very confident that you have good service here in the community. But in the fire service, we always plan for the worst case scenario. And I'm just going to start off with a quick example of a worst case scenario, because time is of such importance in what we do. Obviously, our lights and siren, we're trying to scream to the call and so forth, and you want us there. You think it's been about 25 minutes since you called us, and it's usually about 2.5. That we run into that all the time, because when it's your emergency, trust me, time goes very, very slow. So I'm going to start off with just a quick example as why we do what we do and why we plan for the things that we plan for. Sudden cardiopulmonary arrest, that's simply your heart stopped and your breathing stopped, okay? You're in a bad way. Everything we base this scenario on is called the chain of survival, and this American Heart Association developed this years ago, and it essentially dictates how we plan and so forth, and what you need to be aware of on how we plan for cardiac events, such as a cardiac arrest or a respiratory arrest. And it starts off with the early access. That's one of the most important parts of the chain. Obviously, it's the beginning of the chain, but what it indicates is that we want you to be able to get a hold of us right away. So when you hit 911, we want that rapid response. We want to get that call processed and so forth in hopefully no more than 2 minutes at the absolute maximum. And that's part of what we do in our dispatch center and so forth. We concentrate on that, trying to get it to just an absolute minimum. The second part of that is early CPR. That's where we ask for your help, as well as obviously all of our folks are trained in CPR. But if you can be trained in CPR, you can help save somebody's life. It's extremely gratifying to roll up on scene and see somebody that says, "Hey, the guy dropped over and he wasn't breathing. I did CPR and now he's fine." And in fact, it was a true event. It was a true CPR save, and that's a good feeling for us. It also helps us makes our job a lot easier too. So the third part of the chain, of course, is the early defibrillation. And that's where you see the AEDs, automatic external defibrillators. You may have seen these in the news and so forth. You may see them in airports, that sort of thing. Those are important. They're throughout the community through PAD programs, which I'll discuss in a few minutes. But they're again one of the primary reasons why we save lives is because the heart stops and we jump in and we zap it essentially, and we get the heart going again. So with the AEDs and the early defibrillation, that's where you come in as well, but as well, it comes in with us because we want to get there as quickly as possible so we can defibrillate if you don't have an AED available to you. And then lastly, the early advanced life support care. That's what our paramedics, your paramedics, provide to you. And that goes from everything from seizures to general weakness to sudden cardiac events such as this. You can restart the heart, but once you restarted the heart, it needs chemicals and needs drugs to keep it going until we can get you to more definitive care in the hospital. So it's important that we get that going right away. So again, that chain is sort of the basis on what we do cardiac care specifically. And just for throwing some numbers, the sooner we get there, the higher the survival rate, but about 50% survival rate after the first 5 minutes. So once your heart stops, you got about 5 minutes, okay? And after that, your survival rate goes down quite a bit every minute, 7 to 10%. So after 10 minutes, that's not good, okay? Time and time again, we've brought people back after 10 minutes, and that's no reason to stop. But this is a generic numbers that the American Heart Association has tabulated, and it really helps us drive us to get there quicker and to do what we need to do right away. Now, because of that, from a physiological reason, just not getting into too much detail, these numbers here, okay, basically after 5 minutes, you're not looking real good, all right? And of course, after 10 minutes, biological cell death. And again, this isn't a perfect scenario, perfect physiological things going on, and we've had cases where people have been down in cold water for an hour and different circumstances and so forth for longer than these times. But this is just a generic reason why when you have sudden cardiac event arrest, it is so important we get there as quickly as possible. Now, getting off of the cardiac event, we also have trauma. We go out to trauma all the time, and we have what's called the golden hour. And the golden hour is basically the onset of the injury. You crash your car into the telephone pole. From that moment until the time that you're on the operating table, we try to keep that under 1 hour, okay? Now, in this community, that's very, very possible because you're so close to trauma centers and hospitals and so forth. In a lot of communities, it's not, but they strive to get there if they can. Again, critical trauma victims, less than 15% chance of survival, okay, if that doesn't happen. Again, that's an older number, but it's sort of a generic number. So, again, stressing why it's so very important that we get to you as quickly as we can. So essentially, our goal of resuscitation is going to be to provide the most advanced response in the least amount of time for the most positive outcome. And you've got that here in Rancho Mirage. You've got that here in the 3 cities. You've got that, frankly, in Riverside County with what's available out there in specific areas and so forth. But again, with our system here in the Cove communities that we've built up over the last 20 years, you're really way ahead of the curve. So what do you have available to you right here now? I think everybody's aware you have 2 fire stations. The fire station on Highway 111, they have a paramedic engine company. If you weren't aware, that went paramedic the end of last year, and that was a real positive move for the city, and it's helped in numerous instances to get paramedics to the scene quicker. So we're very happy to have done that. It has a dual role paramedic firefighter, meaning he's a firefighter as well as a paramedic. All of our people on our fire engines are firefighters. Some of them just happen to be paramedics as well. Now, at the Rancho Mirage Station 2, off of Gerald Ford, just near the Children's Discovery Museum, we have BLS engine company, meaning basic life support. And the guys on those trucks that's kind of the not standard, but that's the average fire engines you're going to have. They're emergency medical technicians, and they're well-versed in BLS medicine and emergency medical technician medicine, basic life support type stuff. But they don't have a defibrillator. They have an AED, but they don't have a defibrillator. They don't have drugs and so forth. But the good news is right beside them sits a paramedic ambulance, again staffed with 2 full-time paramedic dual-role firefighters. And they're also signed there as an officer, a paramedic officer as well. So again, we're set up real well at this point. Next. Now, again, we put a lot of emphasis on EMS in this business because 78% of our calls in general, and it's 80% in the industry, are EMS calls. Of course, that involves traffic collisions, public services requests, and your standard issue medical aids. Anytime you call for help for your person or someone near you, it's going to be considered a medical aid. And 78% of those calls are medical aids, are what we do. And so obviously we stress a great deal on doing that right every time. Again, we consider our system here in the Cove community as a premier system because we have a dedicated paramedic coordinator, and that's the gentleman in the back, Mr. Mueller, Captain Mueller. He's a paramedic. He's been a paramedic for 20-plus years. He knows what he's doing, and he coordinates everything in our paramedic program here in the Cove communities, and of course in your city as well. Our goal, of course, based on the numbers that I told you earlier, is to arrive anywhere in the city and on any call, frankly, fires or otherwise, in 5 minutes or less, 90% of the time. And we're pretty close to that in Rancho Mirage. It's difficult to keep that going sometimes because of call volume and the season comes and that sort of thing. But frankly, we tried. That's our goal. That's what we try to get all the time. And it's the standard response. If you call us for 911 help, you're going to get a fire engine and an ambulance. Now, whether that ambulance comes from the Gerald Ford station or if it comes from Palm Desert or wherever it comes from, that's going to depend on the call volume and what those guys are doing at that moment in time. If they're on another call, obviously we can only do one at a time. Now, again, that's part of that system. Because you only have one ambulance assigned to the city, you've also got 4 other ambulances assigned to 2 other cities that move right in here when you call for service at the same time as the other guy did. So as well, we have the truck company, and that to me is one of the best benefits we have here is when there is a significant event at your home or a call of any sort, traffic collision or whatever, we call the truck company and it's 4 extra EMTs that come in, and that allows the paramedics to do full patient care all the way from the time they make contact to the time they get to the hospital. Because normally one paramedic drives to the hospital and the other paramedic sits in the back and tends to the patient. With the truck company available on a critical call, especially a CPR or a cardiac event, something like that, or even a severe trauma, that allows 2 paramedics to work on the patient. And that is very, very beneficial, and I've worked both sides of the fence, and trust me, it's way beneficial to have 2 paramedics work on the patient than just one. especially if you're that patient. Next. Now, we transported over 1,800 patients out of the city of Rancho Mirage last year. Okay, that's a pretty big number. A bit of an increase from 2004 as well. Again, you have a dedicated ambulance that's right here, but you do have backups. We have, of course, the 4 other ambulances in the other 2 cities are immediately available, and if they're not available, which happens pretty rarely, we have a private provider that will come in and assist as well. Okay, that's very rare that occurs. Most of our paramedics have an average experience level of 4 to 5 years. Again, our coordinators 20 plus. We've got several guys that are 15, 20 years plus, the supervisory medics, officers. And so we have a lot of experience. And because we have that experience, we're used as sort of a training ground as well. We help assist all the new paramedics coming into the county fire department. If you haven't been around the last, probably last year or so, the county fire department is developing medics programs throughout the county. And most of your paramedics have been training those folks simply because we have a lot of calls here, and we have a lot of, we call them good calls that these guys can learn a lot of stuff. And they come in and they do their thing, and you know, it's respected that we train them well, and they get out in the world and do their thing. These are brand new medics as well. So we also try to stay on the leading edge of training and or industry standards and so forth. We were the first 3 cities, or first cities department in the county to go to 12 lead EKG. The same thing you get from your doctor in the ER or in the hospital, 12 lead EKG. We do that in the field now. It's a standard of care here in Riverside County now. We're the first ones to implement that and get that done. And frankly, the only reason that happened is because of our partnership with Eisenhower Medical Center, and as well as Riverside County Health and so forth, and us pushing to say that we wanted to get it done because we thought that was going to be the best way to go. And sure enough, here we are today, where it's a standard of care pretty much everywhere. So 12 lead EKG was a big deal for us. We also send our paramedics to conferences, and we keep updated on things. I myself just got back from a conference in Baltimore where we learned about the new American Heart Association CPR guidelines, which has just come out. We learned about innovative technology to help do our job out in the field. So several things that I brought back that I'm going to be presenting and so forth to our medic coordinator to hopefully take forward, and we can move on those and stay on that leading edge, because I think it's really, really important that we stay up front. We also have a continuous quality improvement assessment program. 100% of our calls are audited, meaning we review every call that we go on. We don't just do the call and forget about it. We go over every single call. Rarely do we find errors or big errors or whatever, but we're constantly fine-tuning things to make sure that we're doing it right and we're doing the best thing we can for you, the citizen, the one that called us in the first place. Next. So again, what should you expect? You're going to get either a BLS fire engine or an ALS fire engine in the case of the station on Highway 111. And you're going to get an ambulance, like I noted before. Again, dual-role paramedic firefighters. They can do cardiac and general medications, advanced airway management, ET tubes, that sort of thing, and heart monitors and defibrillators. Now, when they arrive, you're going to get go back one. There you go. There you go. When they arrive, you're going to get 5 people, and the average medical aid every day gets 5 folks, company officer, and at least 2 firefighters and 2 firefighter paramedics. Generally, just so you're aware, just so you have a general idea what to expect, because you folks don't call us but once or twice in your lifetime, hopefully, and we know that. And so we try to kind of lead you along as we go through a call, whether it's on the side of the road or whether it's in your home. But it's important to understand that we're doing what we do every day, and we know what we're doing, and so just kind of go with the flow if you can. Generally speaking, the company officer or one of the paramedics will take a family member aside and start asking questions, and then the other paramedic will tend to the patient. Now, if it's a critical call, then perhaps both medics may go to the patient and the company officer will take information. But it's important that you understand that we have to ask all these questions because that's what we need to know to tell the hospital when we transport to Eisenhower Hospital or Desert or wherever we end up at, that they need this information. And that also helps us figure out what's going on with the patient, why they're feeling ill, how long they felt ill, what kind of illness is it, that sort of thing. Very important things. And then we ask a lot of specific questions as well, including medical history and medications of the patient. And if you have a, go ahead, next one. If you have, well, I'll save on that. Again, we do everything from basic splinting and bandaging to 12 lead EKGs and advanced airways. Next. Okay, and how can you help us? Okay, we're telling you all this stuff about, you know, how we're going to help you, but how can you help us? provide clear and calm and concise initial information to 911. That is so helpful. You couldn't even, I don't know how many times we've responded to a man falling, and it turns out to be a full arrest, a cardiac event, or a guy's general weakness, and he fell off a 2-story roof. Okay, that happens all the time. But if you tell us what's going on initially, we can get in our mindset what's going to go on. We can prepare for it as we get up on the scene in our mind, at least, and then we react. And it's so much easier to react, as you all know, to what you know what's coming than what you get a surprise from. If your location or your home is difficult to locate, or you're in a different area that you're not sure, try to get a landmark. If you're down on El Paseo and you don't know what store you're at, try to get that before you call 911 so that you can tell them that information. Have the house gates doors open and are unlocked. That's really important, because so many times we come up to we can get in your country club. That's easy. We have Knox keys for that and access keys. That's easy. But when we get to your house, the front gate's locked, or if you have a gate, or the front door's locked, we can't get in. Again, that's precious minutes that, back to the beginning thing, that really count for a lot when in a critical situation. And then if the patient's chronically ill, have specific information available for us as far as when he was in the hospital, when he was operated on, and what the doctor said to expect when he came, he came home, and it went awry, and so that's why you had to call us or whatever. Because if we walk in blind and we don't know, it makes our job a lot more difficult. And of course, cooperate with fire personnel as well as you can. We understand this is a significant event, not only for the patient, but for the family members as well, especially a critical call. So we try to go with that, but we still have a job to do, and we still have a methodology of how we're going to do it. And then the age-old question, transport or no transport, okay? We don't have to take you to the hospital. We're not going to force you to go, but we want you to go, because obviously you called us for a reason. You felt something was not right, whether it's with a loved one or with yourself or whatever. You felt something's not right, so you called us. And we came out and we looked at it and we said, well, you look fine to us, but there was an event here. You should go get checked out. If at the bare minimum, you need to see your physician the next day or that afternoon or whatever. Okay, that's real important to us, because we care about our patients. We don't just go to patient after patient after patient. We want you to feel right and feel comfortable. We do transport to all 3 Coachella Valley hospitals. Primarily, we go to Eisenhower, of course, because they're our base hospital and they're the closest and so forth. Most of our patients, of course, have physicians there. But we also go to Desert Hospital. That's a trauma facility for the local area. It's a level 2 trauma center, and they take pretty much anything. So if you fall off a roof or you're significantly traumatized, you're gonna probably go to Desert Hospital. And then, of course, a few of our patients go to JFK Hospital as well. Okay, and another thing that's really important, don't ignore your signs and symptoms. The classic thing with American Heart Association, the classic reason and the #1 reason why people die from cardiac events is because they ignored the signs and symptoms. Your body's telling you, by giving you that pain in your elbow or pain in your shoulder for a week, or that indigestion for 6 hours or whatever. My own father did exactly that. He got an indigestion, he went to the hospital, he ended up with a stent in his heart and so forth. He did exactly what he was told to do. Listen to your signs and symptoms. Do something about it. Don't ignore it. Okay, #1 reason why folks don't make it through cardiac events. Get involved in community emergency preparations. Obviously, you're here, so you're doing that, and that's a good thing. Learn CPR. Learn CPR. Again, I can't emphasize, that's so important. American Heart Association, I just learned this at this conference, just put out a new program called CPR Anytime Program. For $30, you can call them up and they'll mail it to your house, and in 22 minutes on your own TV set, no computers or nothing, you'll learn how to do CPR. Okay, you won't get certified and all that, okay, but you'll know how to do it, and you'll know why it has to be done in certain ways and so forth. Okay, can't emphasize that enough. We had talked about this earlier with the commission folks, and get a hold of your homeowner association or your club or whatever, and order one for the club, and that's what it's designed for primarily, for small numbers of people, 6 to 8 people get together and learn CPR. Again, 22 minutes, you can't beat that, as opposed to the standard courses, okay? And then learn about automatic external defibrillators, AEDs, and the public access defibrillator programs, PAD programs, all right? They do exist here in the Cove communities, and the AEDs are out there in the public. So don't just walk by and, oh yeah, that's one of them electric things. Know how to use it. Know how to pull it out and put it on somebody and save their life, because you're going to do that one day, and you're going to feel good about it, okay, just because you were able to do that. And then kind of lastly, the blood pressure checks and cards. Go to your any fire station, frankly, at least for county fire department, but here in the COVID communities especially, and we'll check your blood pressure. And we'll give you just a quick synopsis of, if you don't feel right and you want to get your blood pressure checked, you roll in there. We'll ask you a few questions, and maybe your medication's not off a little bit, or maybe you just had food poisoning or something. Who knows? But in any event, you get your blood pressure checked, and if you have recurrent blood pressure issues, go ahead and get that card from us and track that for us, or track that for your doctor. Okay. Again, we've sent lots of folks into the hospital because they come in, they just don't feel right, and their blood pressure is 250, over 180 or whatever. Okay, which I think we all know. Hopefully, that's a bad thing. Okay. Okay, and that kind of brings me to all my major points. The one other thing that I wanted to emphasize was that we have to get to where, when you call us, we want to get there as quickly as we can. We're going to get there safely and so forth, and driving rules and all that good stuff. But one of the things that really, really helps us a lot is if you would remember to please pull to the right when you hear us coming up behind you. Okay, that is so important. Don't stop and stand on your brakes. Don't pull to the left. Just pull off to the right for us, and we're going to go around the left, and we're going on our way, and hopefully get to your loved one or whoever that person is that is ill. So. If you have any questions, I just wrote some numbers up here. Chief Witten is your battalion chief. Guess we're not going to see those. Okay. And then we're going to be available for questions afterwards as well. So, yeah, those are our numbers, our medic coordinator and myself. And you're welcome to call us anytime, day or night. Well, okay, day. And you're welcome to call us with good news as well. If we provided good service for you, please do call us and let us know about that as well. If we provide bad service, call us right away. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. It is the goal of our city, obviously, to provide the best fire and paramedic service available. And I think you'll agree the service that we're providing right now is second to none, and we're very proud of it. Our next speaker is Gail Whetstone. And Gail is from Eisenhower Medical Center, and she's going to talk about the response to emergencies. Gail?
All of you for coming out to be with us this evening, and we hope that you'll take home and take to heart a lot of the information that we are giving you this evening. It's very, very important. What I'm going to focus on is basically three topics. First of all, I'm the charge nurse in the emergency room at Eisenhower. So if any of you have been there, and I'm guessing some in the audience probably have, you may have seen me flying through the department with my white coat, and I'm known for my leopard clogs. So if you see leopard feet, they'll belong to me. I'm going to focus on three topics, and I'm going to talk about transitioning care from pre-hospital, which is when you call the paramedics, to inside the hospital. I'm going to talk about the triage process, which is the heart of an emergency room, and I will explain exactly what that word triage means. And then I'm going to tell you what you can do to help us on a daily basis and in a catastrophic event. First of all, Eisenhower Medical Center is a paramedic base station. We treat about 45,000 patients on an annual basis. For those of you who are not involved in medicine, I will tell you those are very high numbers for an emergency room. We are phenomenally busy. The paramedics, when they arrive at your house and they take the information, one of the things they're going to do when they're ready, sort of packaging you up to be transported, is they are going to call Eisenhower. The call will come either via radio or telephone. We have about 21 specially trained nurses. They're called MICNs. This is a mobile intensive care nurse who are qualified to answer the phone or the radio. The training of these nurses primarily is in the EMS protocols for Riverside County and understanding what paramedics may and may not do in the field, what medications they may give based upon protocol, and when they call us because the patient requires additional medication. I can give you an example. If you call the paramedics because you are having chest pain, when they contact us, they are going to give us things like your age, your sex, your blood pressure, you have chest pain, it's radiating, they've given you aspirin, they've given you nitroglycerin, they will give us a numerical rating to your pain, or hopefully your pain has resolved. Or if you have fallen and you have maybe a hip fracture or some kind of broken extremity, they may be calling us for an order for medication such as morphine. And with the working in conjunction with the emergency department physicians, we will then give them the order for morphine based upon data that they have already given us regarding you. One of the other things that the paramedics will do in working with Eisenhower, if there has been an incident such as the car crash that we had last Friday on Country Club and Cook, with the school bus involved, and Eisenhower received 11 children and the fatality from that crash. So when there are multiple casualties, it's very important that we interact with the paramedics to determine how many patients we can safely take and how sick those patients are. The sickest, of course, would be transported to Desert Regional unless they are very, very unstable. Then they would be transported to the closest hospital. One of the advantages, I was going to say that during season being when all the snowbirds come to town, so we're looking at, January, February, March, in that time frame, it is not unusual for us to see 45 to 50 paramedic runs per day in a 24-hour period. And sometimes I think they all show up at once. I think it's a plot to make me crazy, but they do that to us every now and then. One of the advantages of early paramedic contact for the hospital is, most importantly, we know you're coming. We know you are coming, and we will find a spot for you in that crowded emergency room. We can also, like I said, order some of the medications you may need prior to your arrival. If you are in extreme pain, we would like to keep you comfortable for the transport. So we will do whatever we can to make things better and treat you more promptly and efficiently. Another advantage to this is by having a treatment area for you, and the paramedics place you in the bed, they give the receiving nurse the report, is we then want the paramedics, we love them dearly and we think they're fabulous. We don't want them hanging out with us though. We want them back on the street, back in the station, where if there is another emergency and you call 911, that they will be free to respond to your needs and not tied up in the emergency room because we couldn't find a place to put you. So that is a major priority for our emergency department at Eisenhower, is to throw them out. Care and treatment actually starts prior to your arrival at the hospital, and this is a result of the close working relationship the physicians, the nurses, and the paramedics have. Once you arrive in the emergency department, you are triaged, and the word triage means to sort. And whether you come in by ambulance, whether you drive in your vehicle, you will be triaged upon your arrival to the emergency department. When we deal with multiple patients coming into the emergency department setting, there needs to be a process in place that we determine who is the most ill, and that person will be treated first. If a chest pain comes in and a sprained ankle, well, the chest pain will see the physician first. So that is our way of providing good service. Unfortunately, sometimes it means a little bit of a longer wait. The triage process is actually used in areas other than the emergency room. So for example, in a mass casualty incident, the paramedics would be using the same triage or sorting process at the scene, we'll say, of a major car crash with multiple victims. In the event of a catastrophic thing, something like an earthquake, and we have multiple casualties coming to the emergency department, we again triage or sort. We just do it in a different location. So the triage process is very important. Some people have asked questions about Eisenhower and trauma. Although we do see minor trauma, we are not a trauma center. We do not have the same resources immediately available as a trauma center does. However, we do see minor trauma. So if you are involved in a car crash and you hit your head, and maybe you're having some ankle pain, you would be very appropriate to come to our emergency room, and we would be happy to treat you. If it is a major car crash and you are having severe difficulty breathing, or you are unconscious and your blood pressure is unstable, you will also be brought to the closest hospital. And if it's Eisenhower, you may see me upon your arrival there. What we do at that point, if you are unstable, is we do damage control. We stabilize you. We start IVs. We give you fluids. We may or may not start x-rays, all those kinds of things. While this is going on, we are also on the phone to a trauma center, and it may be Loma Linda, it may be Desert Regional. It depends upon what else is going on at Desert and the nature of your injuries. We actually sent a gentleman, it's probably been about 6 weeks now, we flew him to Phoenix because that's where he could get the best care for his injury. And that was in all of Southern California. So we put him on a helicopter and flew him out. We also will treat burns, but again, it's minor burns. And the burns that are transferred out, it depends upon the percentage or the amount of area on your body that's burned, or the area. So if you have facial burns, we're going to be concerned that your airway may also be singed, and you may ultimately have difficulty breathing. In that case, you would be transferred to the Arrowhead Regional Burn Center, is our closest burn center. Once in the emergency room, we have something in place called triage order guidelines, and it's a set of guidelines or orders that a registered nurse may initiate prior to being seen by a physician. So we can order x-rays, lab work, we can give you Tylenol for fever. If you come in and you're having, if you came to me in triage and said, I have the worst headache I have ever had in my life, you are probably going to end up going for an MRI. And I would then talk with one of the emergency department physicians, and I would get that order from him based upon your symptoms, and we will send you off to MRI for that particular test. By doing all of this, it lessens the length of time that you are in the actual treatment area. So on an exceptionally busy day, once all these tests are done, by the time you are in the back seeing the physician, he is going to have the test results. And the determination would be made at that point that you would either be discharged or you would be admitted to the hospital. While you're sitting there waiting for your test results, however, what's going on in the emergency room is more ambulances are arriving. We have more patients coming into the lobby. Nurses are rushing patients off to MRI. Nurses are rushing patients off to the cath lab with heart problems. We may have a helicopter bringing us a patient from an outlying hospital. Palm Springs Police may be showing up with a sexual assault victim for a forensic examination. However, with all of that, what really strikes terror into the hearts of any emergency department nurse is that woman who is 9 months pregnant, and this is her 6th child, and you know that baby is going to come flying out, and you're like, no, no, keep the legs together, no, 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 no. And we have birthed a few babies, but it is not what we love to do. But it has happened. We've actually delivered a few babies in the emergency room, but it's like, no, give me a trauma any day of the week. Give me a trauma. It is much easier on my heart. So in addition to all the sort of organized chaos that you may see taking place there, please rest assured that we are also prepared in the event of an earthquake. So what can you do to help us? Well, if you think about the nurses in the emergency room, I don't think there are too many of us that are skinny. You would think that we would be with all the running around that we do. But grateful patients are always bringing us chocolate. And nurses and chocolate is like locust when they go to it. So you can always bring chocolate. You can always bring chocolate. You don't have to show up with a box of chocolates. Don't have EMS stop at C's and buy chocolate on the way in. That's okay. Later. If you could have a list of your medications in your wallet, or if a family member is right behind you, that would be greatly helpful. Some idea about your medical history. And because you're taking medication for your blood pressure doesn't mean that you no longer have hypertension. And also, one of the biggest things that you can do, especially based upon everything that we've heard here this evening, is you need to have an emergency preparedness plan for your home and especially and also for your community. Eisenhower has one, and we test it, and we are going to test it again in May with a county drill, a county earthquake drill at the end of May. So I thank you again very much for giving me the opportunity to speak. And if any of you have anything, personal questions or issues, I will be around after the meeting, and I will be more than happy to speak with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Most of the presenters up to this point have really talked about how you can prepare yourself better for an emergency, whether it be at home or after an earthquake or, as we've talked about here, in paramedic and EMC work. Now I'd really like to talk a little bit more about what our city is doing in their planning for all of you. And I'd like to at this time bring up our emergency services manager, Dick Sines, who will provide an overview of our city's preparation for the various disasters that we've talked about. Dick?
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Kite. This last Monday evening, my wife and I climbed the Bump and Grind Trail. I'm not sure how many of you have ever climbed that trail or any of our other trails here in the city of Rancho Mirage. But what we found as we were climbing and looking at that experience was how unique it was and a little different than you normally will experience driving down 111. In fact, my wife exclaimed, "What a great city. There are so many wonderful people there." And she was right. You know, this is a unique community, and I think we at City Hall also have a unique perspective when we look to see what we have here in the city of Rancho Mirage. It truly is a great community, and you deserve the very best. So sometimes we need to look at the big picture to see where the true priorities lie. As a city, we are small, but we're flexible, and yet fast enough to immediately respond and do the things that need to be done. And I think that's been pointed out certainly by our fire department and by Gail Whetstone this evening as well. The bottom line is we care, and there's so much that we can do together if we'll just work towards that goal. When our community suffers a major event involving significant injuries or loss of life, sensitivity to the emotional impact on survivors, friends, and families is essential. And so we're concerned about your welfare, not only about what happens, but how you feel about what takes place and how you respond to it. So we're really sensitive to those things. So what is the city of Rancho Mirage doing to prepare for a disaster? You know, I think I've been here 15 years, and I truly believe our hearts are in the right place. We want to do the right thing. We want to help you. And because of that, and the concern that I know that our city council has, our city manager, department heads, and others that work here at the city of Rancho Mirage, there's some things that are high priority items. Emergency preparedness is one of those. The commission was formed over 12 years ago, and the best residents at that time were called to be members of that commission, and that's still the case today. I'm so pleased to work with these fine folks on our commission who know what they're doing and are certainly excited about what they do. We've developed various emergency plans. We've developed emergency operations center at the Annenberg Center, which is second to none and truly a great facility. The League of California Cities says that cities such as ours should take the following steps to prepare for an emergency. One, make emergency response a high priority, which we do. Establish a designated emergency operations center and activate it on a regular basis, which we've done. In fact, we've had quarterly training over there now for all of our employees, trying to help them to prepare, be ready, know the equipment, know what they need to do. Develop and update emergency plans. We're in the process right now working with Riverside County on updating our emergency plan and making sure that our plan works extremely well with them and with other cities. Number 5, we stockpile needed equipment and identify sources of assistance, and we've done that for a long time. educate the public about self-reliance, and our commission really does a lot of educating with the homeowners associations of this city. In addition, the city does the following: provides continuation of government functions, which is fire and police, protection, debris and waste removal, road clearance, emergency shelters, and communications. Assist with emergency plans by clubs, homeowners associations, gated and park communities, and neighborhoods. And we actually have about 83 homeowners associations within the city of Rancho Mirage. So it's really important that we work with them. Coordinate emergency responses within the city with relief organizations such as Salvation Army, American Red Cross, food in need of distribution, which is fine, and other organizations that are really functional and important to us. The city is also hiring a full-time emergency services coordinator to provide a higher level of emergency service response and training. And those interviews will be taking place in the next few days. The City Council's declaration of emergency opens doors for Small Business Administration loans, Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and Federal Emergency Management Administration and grants. This helps move the insurance process along. And if there's anything you really need when things get really tough and you need your insurance agent, is to have the information that's available here. The city keeps thorough records of disaster dates and locations, and that is really critical because most of us forget. It gets lost somehow or another, and we have that information. We also work closely with other cities of the Coachella Valley and the Riverside County departments, health department, sheriff's department, fire department. And the city uses state-of-the-art communications equipment during disasters. Our primary emergency operations center is at the Annenberg Center at Eisenhower Medical Center, and it's truly a great facility. Our city council has gone way out of their way to make those things happen, and I truly appreciate it because these things are going to be so handy when we start having real serious problems. The Health and Medical Welfare Commission of the city, and I'm happy that some of their members are here tonight, is working on a 4-part conceptual plan to help with disaster medical issues. And truly, we appreciate that because that is so important to what happens. The goal of the Community Emergency Preparedness Commission is to assure that the city is prepared to respond to your needs the first 12 to 24 hours following a disaster. And we have been working on this time issue for a long time, trying to cut down the amount of time, get right out there, want to be able to provide a service, and that's really where we're coming from. The next step is really your part. Your homeowners association, gated community, organized neighborhood must be prepared and be ready to do their part. They have to have a plan. They have to know who to contact, our commissioners. But by making those contacts and doing those things, it isn't a disaster in a way. It becomes less of a disaster, and they know what to do and how to respond to it, and that's what we're hoping for. The other thing is that you and your family must prepare and be ready. It's easy, so start now. You just have to do a few things. But we pointed that out in a pamphlet that we've presented to you this evening. You know, we've gone through that pamphlet over and over again, massaging and looking at the 29 things that are really significant. And we really want you to look at that and think about doing that, particularly the things at the end, the 4 things you need to learn to do. Those are truly significant things. In conclusion, what does all of this mean? We care about you and your loved ones. The city is always working towards being better prepared, learning more, trying to figure out new ways of doing things in a better way, and we hope that you are too. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Dick. We've spent the last hour and a half talking about various ways that you can better prepare yourself and also how the city can benefit all of you by us being better prepared. At this time, I'd like to have a couple of our commissioners, Diane Fox and Dick Davis, go into the audience, and if you have any questions, that you'd like to raise, we'd be happy to have any of these presenters up here answer your questions. I do have one question, though, for Dick Perry. I know a lot of people out there may belong to homeowners associations, and they really want to know more about how their homeowners association can develop a disaster plan if they don't have one already in force.
That's a question we get quite a bit. Several months ago, we conducted 3 forums a day apart from each other, and that question came up at every one of the forums. How do I get my homeowners association involved? The answer is, we think, to take an active role in lobbying your HOA. Your president, the board of directors, and everybody else involved to establish an emergency preparedness committee. That's the first step. And once you have a committee, it'll be their responsibility to develop a plan, as I mentioned before. Get your neighbors and friends involved, and something good is bound to happen. We feel you have a right to expect this, and they have an obligation to respond. So get out there and lobby them. That's all we can suggest.
Thank you, Dick. Now, Diane and Dick, would you like to go out in the audience and see if there are any questions that the panel can answer for you? Anybody have any questions? Lady over here in the front, Diane? Right in front of you.
Hello. Some of us live near water, for instance, in Lake Mirage. Would like to know if we're 10 feet away from our largest lake, how would we prepare best in case of an earthquake?
Who would like to address that question? The question had to do with homeowners association close to water and how they would best prepare for that. Do you have any takers up here? Dick?
I'm not sure I understood the question. Are you talking in the event of earth movement and so forth that would disrupt the lake or damage the lake in such a way? Typically, what I've seen happen in earthquakes and so forth is not so much damage to the facility. There's a lot of water movement as the earth shakes, and a lot of water gets splashed out of swimming pools and lakes and so forth, and there can be some minor flooding. And I think that it's pretty hard to, without knowing exactly what's going to happen, it's pretty hard to know for sure what to do. I would just be aware that you are close by and that that's a possibility.
Thank you. Are there any other questions up here in the front, Diane?
I have a question here for the 29 things to help survive. I heard from a fireman in the Palm Springs department. He said that a doorway was one of the bad things about it, and here it says it's a good thing. I'd heard it was a bad thing because if you're standing in a doorway, that door is not going to stand there. It's going to cut off your fingers. Why is that one thing that can help you survive?
Doorways, windows, and other structures are supported more strongly than just your walls. Now, if you're in a doorway where there's going to be a door that's going to swing, yeah, it's going to hit you. Obviously, you don't want to put your hands anywhere near where the door can shut. But typically, you want to go someplace that's strong, along the wall, in a doorway, under a heavy table, something that won't collapse in the event of an earthquake. I don't recommend you run outside. That's the most dangerous thing you can do. But you just kind of have to pre-plan, as I mentioned earlier with the exit drills. You need to pre-plan what you're going to do in an emergency. If you've got a door that naturally likes to swing closed, maybe the door between your garage and your home, they have those automatic door closures. You don't want to stand in that doorway because that door is going to swing, maybe even swing hard. It's a heavy door. But a bedroom door, which is light, you might be able to hold the door open with a doorknob or just push it away with your hand. Things like that can help you. If you don't feel secure, again, go stand next to a wall and away from things that can fall on you. Don't stand near any types of shelving. Don't stand in the kitchen unless you've got earthquake locks or those child-proof locks. They're called earthquake locks now. Don't stand in the kitchen unless you got something like that. Don't stand in the bathroom where the medicine cabinets can fly open. Just stand someplace where you'll be safe and just ride it out until the shaking stops.
Thank you. Dick, did you have a question in the back there?
Yes. I first of all would like to thank all of you for your excellent presentations and information. One thing I did notice, unless I fell asleep, and excuse me if I did, is I don't see the presence of somebody from the police force. And you know, we've talked about stockpiling food, water, etc., and we have we can plan everything we want in Rancho Mirage, but if there are cities around us that don't, then you know where they're going to come. And what do we do about looting, and how are the police going to protect us? And maybe something you want to consider, and at your next meeting, you know, have somebody from the police force, you know, address those issues.
Yeah, I thank you for your comments. At the seminar or the forum we had last year, we did have representatives, or the year before on earthquake preparedness, we did have representatives from the Sheriff's Department and talked about those issues. But Dick, Perry, would you like to address this issue?
Well, that's kind of what I alluded to when I talked a little bit about the recovery phase, that we really need to be aware of our own security, because it's just like the fire resource and everything else, there's not going to be enough to go around. And I think that you're very right. I think that there are people that will, there's multiple concerns. Number one, it's whether or not there'll be local people from other cities that aren't as prepared as we are that will come in and try to utilize our supplies and take advantage of us. But we also suspect that there are occasions where there are opportunists that will come into a community that is heavily damaged, and they'll take advantage of this situation. And that's why I think it's extremely important. You know, obviously we're going to try to beef up a security presence as much as possible in the city, but I think we also need to be prepared to deal with that as best we can on our own. I'm certainly not suggesting that anybody go out and buy, you know, machine guns or anything else like that, but take the steps that you think are necessary to protect yourselves and your family. But your point is well taken. Thank you.
Dick Sines, representing the city.
Yeah, let me just mention that I think that we could almost devote a whole evening just to the police side of it. And we decided this time to do the medical and that side. But you're right, you know, we don't want to leave them out. They're extremely important and they need to be recognized. But I think in another program we probably would emphasize the police security aspect of it and have some speakers here for that subject.
Okay, any other questions? Oh, over here on the left. Doctor?
Gail, could you distinguish between urgent care and emergency care? Because most citizens can't tell the difference.
Question was the difference between urgent care and emergency care.
I am so glad you asked that question. We now, as everyone probably knows, we do have an urgent care center on campus. And the difference between urgent care and the emergency room is urgent care can see things like minor cuts, sprains, things of a very minor nature. When you need to come to the emergency room is when you're If you go to an urgent care center and they feel that you need a further workup, you will then be transported to the emergency room at Eisenhower, either by private auto, if that's safe, or they might call 911. Along that same vein, I've had patients who become incredibly annoyed when they come into the emergency room with a sprained ankle, and I cannot tell them that there is an urgent care on campus and that they can be treated more quickly there. There is legislation or something out there, it's legal, called EMTALA, and that is through the federal government, and that was initiated because of hospital dumping. It's the Emergency Medical Treatment and Active Labor Act. So it is to ensure that everyone receives, regardless of your ability to pay, appropriate medical care. That also means that if you show up and you have a sprained ankle and there's a 4-hour wait in the lobby and you could be seen in 30 minutes, I cannot tell you. It's about a $55,000 fine to the hospital. So, and as much as I would love to tell you, I can't even drop a hint, can't roll my eyes or anything. But please be aware that we do have an urgent care center, the immediate care centers, great resources for this valley, phenomenal resources, and they will provide appropriate care for minor things and transfer you to the hospital of your choice for something more serious. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Thank you, Gail. Any other questions? Gentleman over here in the second row.
Thank you for the program. My questions are following. I've been through a situation, and it's the darkness, the power out. People go into shock. It's either introverted or the opportunist comes out, and it's something you can't plan for. I look at the medium age in our community, and there's a lot of concerns. Also, of what I've been through, communication did not exist. I am no expert. The one thing I remember about Katrina was, I believe it was City Hall for a couple of hours, right after things really happened, a reporter or an employee had a computer that had a modem that connected to a satellite. That was the only communication in operation that they had. And it was my understanding they had everything they had planned for. I just thought I'd mention that to you. And could we, I'm here for an association and I feel responsible for 52 units. Can there be some program where at least we'd have that means of communication to let you know in advance, maybe injured, people that are, when I did my inventory, they have conditions that I could report to the center, because I didn't hear that mentioned.
Sure, that's an excellent question, and I'll ask Dick Sines to respond to that, and he can talk a little bit about our communication center at Annenberg, but also the other communication alternatives that we have available. Dick?
Yeah, let me just explain that both here at City Hall and at the Annenberg Center, we have the satellite communication system set up. The way our system is set up, currently we would have members of our commission attempt to be in contact with each of the homeowners associations to gather the information. We have communications equipment that would work back and forth between them and City Hall. They would get that to us, and then we would relay that information or provide that information through that satellite system. Satellite systems are extremely expensive, but we felt that it's really important that we have one both here at City Hall and at Annenberg. Here at City Hall is our secondary emergency operations center, but we have those systems set up.
Okay, we have time for one more question, if anybody has one. Here, Jeannie Parrish.
To the group entirely and to you folks specifically, I want to tell you how much we appreciate the exposure that you have given all of us and the opportunity to know that this city is preparing for those kinds of things that might occur, be them unscheduled and terrorist or earthquake, whatever. And in order to extend that a little bit, I might tell you that the Health and Medical Welfare Commission is a group of 5 active physicians and 2 nurses, and we are doing things that the council has just approved, along with them securing an emergency coordinator, which we will all be working very closely with. We are now going to be figuring 5 sites in the city where we can have small triage areas, along with the preparedness of the Emergency Preparedness Commission, to take care of the folks that should not go to the hospital, because the hospital already has patients and they will have more than they need, and we need to keep our residents out where they are used to being in their own communities. Secondly, we are also looking for any professional who has been trained and technician, because we need them to be sure that they're all active and informed of our plan. Thirdly, we need to set up, and will be planning, many of these kind of activities for you with the Emergency Preparedness Commission, so that our city will be well prepared and our citizens will not be at a loss of what do I do now. We're going to try to help you solve that problem before we have the problem. And thirdly, we're going to also staff and supply the areas with things that will be there to be used for the welfare and the livelihood of our residents. And I think it's a wonderful idea that we've had this kind of a night, and we hope that many of you come to both ours and the Emergency Preparedness next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeannie. We're just about ready to end tonight's program, but for those of you who would like to see this again on TV, we've scheduled a rerun of tonight's program, and they'll be on Channel 17, the Warner Cable, and they're going to be aired after the April 6th council meetings on Saturday the 8th, Tuesday the 11th, and Thursday the 13th of April, and those reruns will be at 10 a.m. and 7 p.m. Those are the times that the council meetings are actually run, and this meeting will follow that. So I want to thank you all for coming here tonight, and thank all the presenters who were here tonight and took their time out of their busy schedules to be here. And we really hope that you'll all leave tonight better understanding the various ways that you can prepare for any future disaster. And also, more importantly, we want you to know that the city of Rancho Mirage is totally committed to do whatever is needed to protect your lives. So begin tomorrow, put your plan in order, and drive safely tonight. Get home, and see you later. Good night.